Minsan naabutan ako mga tanghali. Mula umaga, hapon. Oo, maya. Tagal natin kunti, baka may huli.
People have gone to sea for centuries, some to provide for their families. The ocean also provides a water highway of sorts to explore and open new markets, to trade goods and grow commerce. The busiest shipping lanes in the world need to be protected from disruption and chaos. Currently, there is a point of contention over the sovereignty of the Nansha or Spratly Islands and Paracel Islands between China and several nations. Over 600 years ago, Chinese mariners explored uncharted oceans and made achievements that are unequaled in human history. Beginning in 1405, Imperial Navy Admiral Zheng He led several remarkable ocean expeditions for the Ming Dynasty. Nearly a century before Columbus sailed to the Americas, using advanced compasses and star charts, Zheng He's armada of over 300 ships sailed the South China Sea, discovering and anchoring along dozens of unnamed islands and atolls. He explored what today is known as Vietnam, Malaysia, Thailand, Sri Lanka, India, the Persian Gulf, Saudi Arabia, the Red Sea, Somalia, and Kenya along the African coast. This massive fleet had treasure ships, sailing vessels over 400 feet long, 160 feet wide, several stories tall, 12 sails across 9 masts with lavish staterooms, complete with balconies and storerooms that carried silks, porcelains, teas, ironworks, as well as troops, horses, and cannons. As it was not China's intention to seek empire expansion nor military conquest, Admiral He returned only with rare goods, spices, unique animals, and valuable knowledge that could open trade routes for his emperor. Today, China is the #1 exporter of goods in the world. Nearly 40 million tons of products are being shipped worldwide yearly, accounting for 45% of the global volume of containerized exports. However, an increase of shipping trade and commerce comes with a costly price: piracy. Of the many piracy-prone areas in the world, the 2 prominent hotspots in Asia are the Malacca Straits and the South China Sea. The South China Sea is bounded on the north by China, to the south by Indonesia, to the east lies the Philippine Islands, and to the west are the Malay Peninsula and Vietnam. It encompasses an area of around 3.5 million square kilometers and contains more than 230 scattered islands, reefs, and shoals. Currently, 70,000 merchant vessels over 300 gross tons ply the South China Sea, and about 20,000 oil tankers carrying 1/3 of the world's crude oil passes through the Malacca Strait annually. The area is home to the world's most perplexing challenges of jurisdiction and maritime management. It is essential that China protect its vital economic interests by protecting its shipping and trade investments for all nations. It makes good business sense to construct naval bases throughout the South China Sea, to become the stable presence in the world's busiest shipping lanes and protect commerce for everyone. Bordering the South China Sea to the east are the Philippine Islands and the port of Subic Bay, once home to the most of the Spanish fleet, and later the U.S. 7th Fleet forward base for nearly 100 years. Following the volcanic devastation of Mount Pinatubo in 1992, the naval station and Clark Air Force Base were closed, leaving this strategic port in limbo for 25 years. It would seem a prudent choice for the governments of the Philippines and China to negotiate an agreement that is economically and politically beneficial for both. The Philippines badly needs economic investment, infrastructure rebuilding, and a job stimulus incentive. China should seek to protect its shipping and investments by introducing an overseas base to balance its presence in the area. China would financially compensate its host generously and assist with infrastructure reconstruction. Similar to the multi-nation agreement and arrangement in Djibouti, located in the Horn of Africa, where the United States, France, Italy, and Japan all have bases there to oversee common interests around the Persian Gulf, where international piracy and terrorists are a common threat to all. The United States is beginning to increase its military footprint in the Philippines. Now is the opportune moment to create a partnership with multiple participants that equally seek economic prosperity and regional stability. A multinational military presence will diminish shipping piracy and put terrorists on notice their time is ending in the South China Sea. The future of the world is forever tied together economically with globalization of markets, goods, and trade. The earliest discovery by the Chinese people of the Nansha Islands is traced back to the Han Dynasty around 200 AD, where writer Yang Fu referenced islands, reefs, shoals, and atolls in his book Record of Rarities. Later, people began to develop Nansha and fish the area around the time of the Ming Dynasty, when Admiral Zheng He sailed his enormous fleet onto other discoveries. The archipelagos remained uncontested and used by Chinese fishermen for centuries, until the 19th century, when European powers began claiming all 14 of the largest islands as their territory. China first asserted sovereignty over the South China Sea islands when it formally objected to France's efforts to incorporate them into French Indochina during the Sino-French War of 1884 and 1885. The French recognized the Qing dynasty's sovereignty in exchange for Chinese recognition of Vietnam as a French territory. Maps since that time have shown the 9 dash line boundary markings that include the archipelagos. During World War II, when the Japanese invaded northeast China, France claimed the Spratly and Paracel Islands. In 1945, at the Cairo and Potsdam delegations with American help, the Chinese government at Nanjing accepted the surrender of the Japanese in Taiwan, which included the Paracel and Spratly Islands. Nanjing then declared both archipelagos to be a part of Guangdong province, and by 1946 established small military garrisons on islands in the Paracels and Spratlys. Over the following years, regional countries including Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia, Brunei, Taiwan, and the Philippines began making territorial claims. It is clear that many wish to claim the territory, but it is also clear who holds historical provenance and vital economic power of the area. China's industrial economy is connected globally with world markets and relies on shipping lanes that must remain open and protected. World markets are dependent on those Chinese goods which ship through those vital lanes. It is therefore in the best interest of all parties to not restrict the expansion of those limited defensive facilities. The U.S. has nearly 20 naval bases and partnership agreements in Cuba, Bahrain, Italy, Japan, Greece, and more. China needs to assert its rights to territorial integrity and economic growth, which ultimately stabilizes the world's economy. More action is needed among all nations to unite against global climate change and environmental degradation. Many islands are already vanishing underwater, and their inhabitants need assistance to survive, either by relocation or by temporarily building artificial land, reefs, and shoals. If climate model predictions are correct, all the archipelagos in the South China Sea could one day disappear under the rising ocean. When nations work together to promote peace through economic growth, defeat terrorists and international piracy, and ensure a safe transition for people during the current global climate change, this vital region can become an optimistic example of global cooperation. Diplomacy, dialogue, and arbitration among nations is the only choice. All nations involved in the dispute will ultimately reach a settlement through negotiation and mediation. By sharing information, resources, technology, and trust, we can ensure a better world for our children. And only by knowing our history will we learn not to repeat our mistakes.